www.thebeararchive.org. I'm Javi. I'm joined in the studio with Tony Khalife and our guest today, Mr. Mark Richards. Remember, if everything is made of energy, then we have a lot to discuss. Let's get right into it with Tony and Mark. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Javi. Good morning, Mark.
Good to have you both here in the studio. Thanks for making the drive. And I'm glad and grateful that you both made it safe.
Yes, sir. I just rolled out here from the Bay Area. I started early, started at 4 a.m. and just straight to the station.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Wouldn't miss it for anything.
A man of discipline and commitment, Tony Khalife.
Yeehaw.
Well, folks, today we'll be talking with a cancer survivor. We'll be talking about health, healing, the body, the mind, nutrition, and we'll be learning and asking some questions to Mark Richards today about his journey. So, Mark, would you like to say hi and give a brief intro?
Yeah, hi. So, my name is Mark Richard, and I was working my whole life, like a lot of people get into that track, and then not concentrating and focusing on really living, and ended up getting sick. And I was a top performer, real estate market down in Los Angeles, ended up being number 3 out of 6,000 real estate agents. So I was super focused on success, but not paying attention to diet and people and experiencing life, and was just looking at the success part of it. And so when I got sick, I became super motivated to figure out how to cure myself naturally. Chemo, radiation, and surgery, didn't make sense to me. I wanted to do something that was more loving and caring for my body. So I did a super deep dive into nutritional ways to heal, and it worked remarkably well for me. And since then, I've been helping people who have cancer or other diseases figure out how to navigate that path naturally.
Wow, what a triumphant endeavor. Excellent.
I listened to your, so folks, if you don't know, he's got an extensive interview on Spotify where you really go through how you were a real estate agent, very competitive, very successful, top 3 out of 100 and something.
6,000.
Oh, shoot.
9 Bay Area county, 6,000. I was way up there, yeah.
Very competitive. And successful. You talked about how when you had symptoms like a headache or you were tired, you would just kind of use, I think, like you said, ibuprofen or aspirin or something like that. You just kind of go. Your mind told you just to go, keep going and keep going. And you, for lack of a better term, you neglected the body's signals, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, my body was telling me for a long time, hey, wake up, something going on here, and I just kept pushing it down. I was eating Rolaids, Tums every day, ibuprofen, aspirin, Tylenol, caffeine, Burger King, burrito trucks, you name it. I was a perfect recipe for disaster. But I was working 12-hour, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. I mean, I would blow out birthdays. I'd blow out my anniversaries. I had 4 kids that I was raising. And I was on that bullet train, and a lot of people out there, some of the people that may be listening to this might be on that, up here in Humboldt, it's beautiful up here. But down in San Francisco Bay Area, there's a lot of people that are on that bullet train. And you don't think about it. If somebody had come up to me and said, hey, you need to slow down, I'd be like, I got this. Because my mind was hard. I was tough. My mind was like, I could do this. Anything that comes my way, I got it. But my body was like, I'm going to drop you. And it did in 2016 in a big way. So,
and interestingly, you attribute this also a little bit to your upbringing growing up. I think you said in L.A.
Yep. Los
Did
Angeles.
You say slums of L.A.? I think you said something like that.
Yeah. I was born in a very very dysfunctional childhood, very poor slums. You know, when I say there's no food, there was literally no food in the house. I mean, there might be something left in a ketchup container or something. When you open the fridge, that was it. No canned food, nothing in the house. You know, and it was a pretty bad environment. All my cousins were in gangs, people shooting each other out in the streets. You know, there was alcohol and other stuff going on in the family, and there was. I mean, when I say no food, we used to eat cat food. I remember eating dry Friskies cat food out of a bag watching television. You know,
Wow.
it was pretty intense. I didn't know that we were poor until I get a little bit older. I was about 6 or 7, maybe, and I had a friend, and I was talking about eating cat food, and he looked at me with this look like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh shit!" You know, that's maybe that's not something that's normal. You know, and I started realizing as we got older, but I knew I didn't want to raise my kids in that environment. So when I got older, I got on that whole thing about I want to have a family, I want to raise children. I always knew I wanted 4 kids, and you know, so I started working hard and got fast at it and really good at it and efficient at it. But I wasn't paying attention to my body, you know.
Let me just remind you, I know we're here talking amongst the guys and the fellas, but there are some words that we can't use on the radio.
Sorry.
It's okay. Just want to let you know.
Okay, cool.
I failed to mention that.
Thank you.
But
It's different than a podcast, for sure. You know, podcast, you have a lot more freedom here. Here we're under supervision, continuous supervision. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you, guys.
Well, it's really beautiful. You know, I had the pleasure of meeting you last year at our first men's gathering at Inner Bloom, and you shared so much of your story. And what was most striking about your story and is you and your spirit and how you carried yourself through the dark night of the soul. And what I gathered from you then was that success has a huge tag on it, and it's got a shelf life. So, and I think you got to that edge, and you basically did in 180, and you took yourself to the possible farthest place you can go to bring yourself back into yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly commendable. And that's basically the nature of this show. Chi Talks is how we can preserve our chi and how we can have more of chi within us so we can share with the world. And chi is not just energy. It's also, you know, balanced mind, balanced habits, and so forth. And I think your return to balance has been incredibly just powerful, and you've gathered so much. And as I heard earlier from some of the stuff that Javi sent me as well, that you've collected a huge spreadsheet of all the things that work, and I'm sure most of our listeners would love to hear what is it that can help you cure yourself and heal yourself and not get to that place. So looking forward to hearing your
Yeah, you know, it was a journey for me going from, you know, Mr. Businessman. If somebody had told me to meditate, I would have said, I don't have time for that. You know, eat, do this. I wouldn't have slowed down. But I know how to talk to those people now that are on that train, you know, how to get off of there. And back when I started when I first got sick, you know, the doctors were like, go this route. And I said, no, I'm going to do something different. So I read 40 books on nutrition and living a more balanced life, diet, connection with people, meditating, which I'd never done, breath work, visioning. These are all things that I started to incorporate, but mostly it was nutrition initially, because my focus, I studied physics and mathematics when I was in college. So I always had a scientific interest in how things work. I mean, I was studying astrophysics, elementary particle physics, Einstein's relativity theories. So I was fascinated by how the universe worked and how things work. So I took that. When I got sick, I walked away from, you know, when you're that high in real estate, you make a lot of money. I was making over $1 million a year personal income. And I literally turned the lights out on and walked away. That's it. Turned the lights out, closed my office. I was a broker, walked away from it and moved. My family had been up here in Humboldt for a long time, Humboldt, Mendocino. So I moved up to the mountains. I told my doctor, I'm moving to the mountains. I'm going to meditate and juice vegetables. And he was like, you're nuts. You're wasting valuable time. And at that point, I had done a lot of research and read a lot of books. And I thought, I've got a pretty good idea what I'm going to do. And I felt confident in it, still like questioning a little bit, but I felt pretty confident in it. And I moved back up here to Humboldt. It's beautiful, peaceful, quiet. And these are the things that I learned is, when you're sick, I think you're grasping for how to not be sick, and you're willing to take a lot of things. And it's hard because people you love are saying, you need to go the conventional means. And other people are saying, trust your instincts, trust your intuition. And one of the things I learned in doing all the research I did, and it was a lot more than just reading books. I did the scientific studies on it too. Everything that I did was evidence based, because I still have that scientific bent. I looked at the medical research articles. I went into the PubMed. I went into the deep dive articles. I looked online for testimonials from people who weren't selling anything and how they survived. And I noticed that there were groupings of what they were doing. There were commonalities in the people that were surviving, and the books that I read and all of the studies that I did. And I was going back to the natural, going back to the way we used to be tens of thousands of years ago. We didn't eat processed food. We didn't have these high kinds of stress, and different stressors back then, but not like it is now, where it's just constant stress all the time, where you feel like you're being pulled in a certain way. And meditation was something that was super important, because it took you out of that anxiety, depression. Oh my God, I'm going to die. And it's really good if you're doing a meditation and you do focused meditations or gratitude meditations. You have that sense of gratitude, that sense of calmness, that sense of peace, that sense of happiness, which is radically different than being depressed or having anxiety. And there's a whole epigenetic part of that, the epigenetic science of it. And if anybody doesn't know about epigenetics, it's fascinating. It's the way your genes express themselves in the environment that you're in, emotionally and physically.
And what you carry with you from past.
Exactly, yeah, and what you carry from the past. So if you're...
In medical terminology, I think what they say is your genes predict your life and your illness and essentially, your death, right? But that's not necessarily the case.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah. The environmental aspects can change the way those genes express themselves, meaning that it'll turn certain genes on and certain genes off. So you may have anti-tumor genes that get turned off if you're in an environment that's bad. But if you're in a happiness environment, dance is great, meditation, being with a human connection is phenomenally healing. Mm-hmm. Really being present, talking to the people that are around you. You don't know it, but it's actually really, really good. I mean, there's a science behind that healing there, that feeling that you feel.
Right. It's mutual resonance, that brings your energetics and your vibration, raises you above that which is kind of plaguing you. And once you rise above, you're set to go,
Yeah.
I didn't know that myself for a long time, being on a journey of health and healing. And then probably it wasn't until like maybe 2017, 2018. I was born in 82. And this idea of connection that fosters well-being and health, and having the people around you and what type of people around, and the sense of feeling a harmony, connection, community that is a variable to health and healing was very sort of kind of groundbreaking, at least for me on my journey.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I went from, it was 180 degrees. Literally, my life is so much different than it is back then. I'm much happier now. Mm-hmm. I have a lot less money, but I mean, people make money to be happy. You can skip all of that and go right to where you want to be. I love my life right now.
Can I ask you a question? If someone, I think cancer is quite prevalent. I remember hearing about it for the first time in the 80s when I was a kid. A family friend of a neighbor of a family friend, they got cancer, and then boom, it's just like probably whether it was in 3 or 4 months or something like that. And then growing up, friends and family, I got a huge family. There's a lot of obesity, there's a lot of high blood pressure, there's a lot of diabetes, and then cancer is like one of those. Is like, oh, you do not want to get cancer because there's no coming back from it in a way. And I want to know, for maybe people that are hearing this and maybe they just got diagnosis, or a friend or a family member, that's really a hard-hitting blow for a family. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like, when the doctor told you that, hey, you have cancer, and then you're telling yourself, oh my God, I'm going to die, and having to do meditation to mitigate that anxiety. What was that conversation like? And then what was your thought process to go also unconventional route?
Yeah. It happens. It evolves over time, because you don't just all of a sudden, that's it. You already pretty much, as you're getting sicker and sicker. It started with a lump on the back of my neck, and I ignored it for 6 months, and then it came around onto my neck from the front, and then underneath my chin, and all across my shoulder blades, collarbones, and then a lump underneath my armpit. And it got really bad. I lost 50 pounds in 3 months. Night sweats, intense night sweats, drenching night sweats. So I know I was pretty sick. I'd started going into the doctors at that point, saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And they started testing me for all kinds of things: lupus, HIV, tuberculosis, all of the things that had similar things to the symptoms that I had. And I was having a conversation with my doctor at one point, and I said, okay, what's the next steps? And he said, biopsy, surgery, chemo, radiation. And I said, I'm not going to go that route. I said, what do you think I have? And he said, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4, advanced stages. And I said, I'm not going to do the biopsies and all of the other things. I said, I'm going to do something different, because I knew my body was in a place that I didn't want to poison. I call it cut, burn, and poison. And for me, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not recommending, this isn't medical advice to anybody. This is my journey, what I did. And for me personally, the right way was more like nurturing, love, and caring to my body. And that just sounded really good. All of the things that I discovered were eliminating stress, ways to navigate that. But when I had already realized, when the doctor told me that, hey, yeah, you've got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, I already knew. I had done it. The first thing you do when you start getting symptoms and sick is you get on the internet and you start reading. And it was tough. It was really, really hard. The emotional part of it is extremely hard. For me, I equated cancer with death, and that isn't the case, especially now. There's a lot of things you can do. There's medical research that's actually advanced quite a bit. And these days I've coached enough people. I don't say coaching. It's more like a guide, talking to enough people that I tell them, look, it's your journey, what you decide, what you feel comfortable with. And if people tell me they want to go the medical route, I tell, I'm behind you 100%. And if they say, look, I want to go the nutritional route, I'm behind them 100%. That's what I did. But since then, I've talked to maybe 80, 90, 100 people over the last 6 years. And people that do a combination of the two actually do really, really well. So I've seen it, and I know that the nutritional route for me was super important. And I know that the nutritional route, 1 + 1, if you go 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. And by that, I mean doing the medical route plus doing the nutritional route doesn't equal 2. There's actually, believe it or not, there's a symbiotic relationship where it's actually more like 3 or 4. They both work on the cancer cells and work phenomenally well doing that combination. But yeah, it was tough. I mean, I wake up every morning and the first thought, even before you're awake, is, oh yeah, I'm dying. Mm-hmm. And that life energy, that sadness and that overwhelm would come over me. And multiple times during the day, 20, 30 times a day, you're sitting there having a conversation, you get engaged with a friend or a program on television or anything, and you would forget that you were sick, and then you'd remember that you were sick, and oh yeah, I'm dying. Learning to navigate that, and this is why meditation is so important, and lowering your central nervous system and getting into a place where you're more relaxed and you can really take a look at the big picture and not make it more or less than it really is, not freaking out. And when I got a course of action, because I had studied all of this stuff and did it, the deep dive medical research articles and everything else, I knew why green tea was good to drink. Matcha, by the way, and green tea is phenomenal to drink. And I came up with 21 supplements. I noticed that these supplements kept coming up, and they were all organic supplements: green tea extract, broccoli extracts, quercetin, DIM. These are all really, really good things that are vitamin C, bioflavonoids. I was like, yeah, I can do that. These aren't crazy chemicals, and they're natural, and they're supplements. And then I noticed the foods, what people were doing. They weren't juicing vegetables. They weren't juicing fruit. They were juicing vegetables mostly. You put in a little bit of fruit because if you're just juicing all greens, it's pretty green when you drink it. But you put in a little bit, put in a couple carrots, put in a apple, but you don't put a lot of sweeteners in it because when you're sick, they say fructose isn't going to make you sick. But I think if you're sick, for me, the science behind it is still there. Cancers do feed off of all the sugars, any kind of glucose. So for me, I cut out glucose as much as possible. I started juicing vegetables. I was drinking a half a gallon of juice a day. And it was all greens, and I started growing my own greens because if you go buy organic, it's expensive. So I grew phenomenal gardens. My kale was 2.5, 3 feet tall, beautiful, deep, rich, dark green leaves because I would feed it. Being up here, we know how to take care of plants, and I had amazing vegetable gardens. So it was beautiful. I loved it. And then I recycled the leftover, the pulp. I put it into a blender, mix it up with water or coffee grounds, and put it right back into the soil again. My plants were loving it. They were Amazonian-sized vegetables. But it's really important to get that fiber too. So I ate huge salads. I would make myself a beautiful salad, and I didn't scrimp or whatever you call it on the stuff that I put in it. I paid for the seeds. I paid for the avocados. I love avocados, but they can get expensive. But avocados are really good for you. I made amazing salads, and the salad dressings, balsamic and honey and mustard and garlic, it's good.
I want to ask you, in Qigong, with the Qigong lens and with Kung Fu as well. Kung Fu is about the ability to apply repetition, energy, and time to acquire skill. And one of the things that I learned was that the ability to learn is an essential skill that can either foster life or your demise if you cannot learn something. And it seems like you were at a place where you had to learn something different, otherwise you were going to die. And so that learning process, I imagine now you feel, your ability to talk about all of this science-based nutrition, knowledge is power.
Absolutely.
So I want to know a little bit about the journey about learning something, I think, brand new probably for you at that time in your life?
Yeah, it was very brand new for me. Most of the time back before in my old life, it was, steak, potatoes, on a plate, it would be like steak and potatoes, and you wouldn't find the vegetables on there.
The meat and potatoes, that's the most essential.
Right. And, it radically changed because, my body craved the steak. All of the gut biology craved steak and carbs. And switching over to vegetables, it was pretty tough, but I was absolutely determined. Mindset's a lot of it, but I wanted to live. And after reading the research, and this is where what you were talking about, learning something new, there's several modalities that I've come up with. I'm in the process of writing a book, and in the book I talk about mindset, but I also talk about what I call knowing. I was thinking about calling it research, but I like the idea of knowing. And if you've done the research or you've done that, you know why green tea, the ECGC in green tea and what it does on a science level, causing apoptosis in cancer cells. I know that. I read the research, not just one, but multiple articles. So for me, when I was drinking green tea, I knew what it was doing. It wasn't somebody that just told me, hey, drink green tea. Eat broccoli sprouts or broccoli extracts, the sulforaphane in the broccolis. Same thing, very, very good at causing apoptosis in just cancer cells, but it helps protect your normal cells. I knew that. I read the research. I did it. So when I was doing what I was doing, I felt super confident that I was on the right path. I knew what all of these things were doing. I knew that meditation was going to lower my central nervous system, bringing down cortisol levels and adrenaline levels. And if you've got high cortisol and adrenaline levels, your immune system gets whacked. So I knew the science, but I knew all of these things. So I was in there, knew this, and I had learned that.
Mm-hmm. If you're just tuning in, this is Chi Talks with Javi, Tony, and today our guest is Mark Richard, and we're talking about surviving cancer.
I think one of the striking things that you just mentioned is that you wanted to live, and that sentiment alone could really bring you to a place of clarity about what you need to do, and then also being so equipped with your scientific studies, you just went straight to the heart of it all. And what was some of the during the time when you were diagnosed and you were feeling really, was there any time that you wanted to give up? And at that moment, what was the thing that brought you, or the kind of support that you got? Because you said earlier too that some people wanted you to do it the natural way. Some people said, go the doctor route. What was also some of the most supportive things that you felt that came your way, so that for our listener too, so in case we have people, everybody has people in their life that are struggling with this issue. So what would be the best way to support them so that they can find what is really truly the way they gonna fix themselves or get help or heal themselves?
I don't think I ever really thought about giving up. There was times in my life that I didn't know if I was going to make it, for sure, and that was pretty intense. I remember at least twice having conversations with my children and my wife saying, "Hey guys, I might not make it through this." I was very, very, very sick. I was watching my body disappear. But one of the things that was really good for me was knowing my path, my path, and being confident in the path that I was going to go on, and knowing the research behind it and why it worked. You start juicing, you don't start feeling better in a week or two. It took several weeks. It took probably 6 weeks before I really started feeling anything. But one of the things when you're sick with what I had, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, you keep getting more and more lumps. They're getting swollen and painful, and all kinds of stuff is happening. The night sweats are really intense. But one of the things I noticed after about 6 weeks is I wasn't getting sicker. Mm-hmm. And you talk about the encouragement and knowing you're on the right path. That was phenomenal. That was amazing for me. It was like I wasn't getting sicker. I didn't have new lumps. There wasn't new swollen lymph nodes. The night sweats started stabilizing, and my weight started stabilizing. I was literally disappearing. I was disappearing. My body was disappearing. I remember looking in the mirror and thinking, I'm literally disappearing right before my eyes. But after about 6 weeks, I was like, I wasn't getting sicker. I wasn't getting better yet, but I wasn't getting sicker. And that was a mind shift for me. Mm-hmm. That was where I became more of, I've got this. It wasn't a victim mentality anymore. It was more like a warrior mentality. It was like, I got this. Cancer is not going to kill me. And I think having that mindset also really, really helped me, because I just kept getting, stabilized, and then I started getting better and better and better. When I went back into my doctor, I told him when I left, I said, when I moved up here, I said, I'll go up to the mountains. Give me 4 months. It's not going to kill me, because he had scheduled a scan in 4 months. And I said, give me 4 months. Let's take a look. And I came back, and I knew I was getting better because I wasn't getting sicker, and I started feeling better. I thought, I'm on the right path. When I went in to go see my doctor at 4 months, he scanned me and he said, your tumors and lumps are so small we can't even biopsy them at this point. Keep doing what you're doing. And I went, dude, I'm juicing vegetables and meditating. And he goes, lettuce doesn't kill cancer. I remember those words. And I said, something's working for me. Obviously, it's more than lettuce, but it was working for me. But I knew I was on the right path. And that was super powerful for me. That was where, okay, I got this. I just need to run with this and keep going with it.
Validating.
Fantastic. Amazing. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, it sounds like that was very validating. And you talked about the sense of knowing. I thought that was really interesting too, because a lot of times we'll hear something and we'll think that something is right, but it's not until, I think, Tony, like with martial arts and training and practice, you don't know something until you can embody it, and then you can repeat it. Like we have that saying of beginner's luck, when you can accomplish something and you've never done it before. But to be able to repeat something over and over and over again through and with your body and with your mind and intellect, then you really have a sense of knowing. And so I wanted, the question came up to me, well, to you, because of your experience, what is cancer? What is cancer? What are we told it is? What do you say that it is?
That's a hard question, because you could study it, and a lot of people say it's all kinds of things.
I mean, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, mitochondrial disease, mitochondrial dysfunction. What it really is it's your cells don't stop producing. You get these misshapen, I think they call them misfolded proteins inside cells. And, don't quote me on the science, but something goes wrong with the cellular structure, and they don't go through a normal cellular death. They don't go through an apoptosis and go away. They just keep growing. Something happens. In my experience, the number one cause of cancer, in what I think, is stress. Number two would be exposure to some kind of toxic chemicals, toxic exposure to something. But stress is huge.
Say more.
Yeah. If you go into stress, you're going to have there's a lot of stuff that happens physiologically in your body. A lot of things aren't working right. Stress causes on the epigenetic level, that kind of stress causes a lot of the genes that are keeping you healthy to express themselves in an unhealthy way, and the genes that are actually protecting you turn off.
Mark, we wear stress as a badge of honor in our society, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's
so true.
Yeah, if you can, this is why meditation is so important. And like I said, if somebody had come up to me when I was Mr. Real Estate Agent working 14 hours a day, making $100,000 a month, and said, you need to meditate, I'd be like, yeah, dude. But here's the thing. I was that guy, and now I'm not. And this side is much, much better. Much better. You don't need the money to be happy, and I know that now. But I also know how to talk to those guys that are those C-level, super, super bullet train guys. I can go, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
Because I know how to talk to those guys. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey for me. I love this side much better, and I'm trying to help people. That's what I do now when I talk to people, and that's what my book is for. I really want to reach people. And I'm not interested in being just an author or being somebody who's out there. I really want my book to help somebody or some people go from where they are to a much better place.
My mother, passed away from cancer. She had multiple cancers, actually. They kept on progressing from breast cancer to throat cancer and some other stuff. And then finally her body was so worn out by the chemo that she popped a vein and they couldn't do anything about it. So she basically bled out. And she was on so many pills. I remember I couldn't count the amount of pills that she had. And so that was very heartbreaking to see her go through that. And it is a tough road for anybody. And my mother is my mother was in Lebanon, so Lebanon does not have the right conditions for you to alleviate stress in any shape, way, or form because basically everybody's living on top of each other. And I think one of the great benefits of living in the woods is you get space. You get distance between you and the other, and not the other as the person, but the other and everything that is outside of you that's causing you to not be yourself. And nature around us here is just so beautiful and so inspiring and suggests nothing but the highest. And there's so much for us to learn from nature on a continuous basis. And I think no matter what the degree of the illness is, the moment you take your shoes off and you start walking barefoot and on the land, the moment you begin to feel that resonance, you begin to feel this hum that the earth is giving you, that's just tuning you up. And I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you came up and bringing your medicine up here, because that's. I think we hope for Humboldt County to become more of a place like this. That's the idea.
I think it's perfect. I've traveled all over the world, guys, that's what I do now. And I've spent the last 3 or 4 years, especially now traveling around the world, going to different retreats and different experiences, seminars on healing, learning breathwork techniques in Austria and the Austrian Alps. I was up on the top of the Austrian Alps doing breathwork. I just came back from Japan and Bali. And one of the things that really strikes me is every time I come back, how beautiful Humboldt and Mendocino are. I mean, we really do live in a magical place. I've been all over the world, and I'm like, this is it. We live right here, right now. The other day I woke up in the morning and went through a hike through the redwoods, and then in the afternoon I grabbed a bottle of wine and went with my wife out to the beach. And
It doesn't get any better than here. It really doesn't.
I went out to Shelter Cove, and I was sitting there watching the sunset on a beautiful day. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't get to do that. And stop and feel the beauty and be present where we are. We live in a beautiful place on the planet.
Well, there's more talk about this place becoming a Rio. Owner of Chautauqua talks about conscious blue zone living. There's tourists, inspiration for tourists for transformational tourism and healing retreats or classes or workshops. For the listenership out there, what do you guys think? And do we want to? I was sort of thinking about another sort of rush. We just got through the green rush. What would you call this? So sort of like a healing rush or something? I don't know.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This is a perfect place for it. Wonderful place. The redwoods, the forests. I mean, it's really, really the perfect place for it.
I mean, after the fall of the economy in here, and we've most of the economy here has gone, berserk. Well, I wouldn't say berserk, but has just no longer there. But there's so many grievances, and I think we definitely are upset about that outcome, and the grievances will eventually kind of catch up with us physically, and I feel like. Our environment is kind of under a spell of some sort that could have a tilt towards something a little bit dark and less healthy. Anything you can suggest for anybody that's feeling that kind of sense of withdrawal and grief about the loss of what was before? Any guidance you could offer so that we don't tip or tilt into a more uncomfortable and unhealthy way in ourselves because of these feelings and these grievances?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, I think it's a lens you take a look at life with. You can always look at the things that are not going right, but you can also look at the things that you have. I'll tell you, when you lose your health, that's a big one.
Right.
Really, truly, honestly, guys, if you've got your health, you're in a really good place from a lot of other people that don't. And I think looking at the positive aspects, being grateful for it, the things that are in your life, sometimes it's hard to find them, but they're there. They really are, with somebody, I'm walking down the street and I get a nice warm smile from somebody, it'll make my day, and that's something important to look at. Your family, friends, people that love you and that you love. those are the exercises that I did when I was I was sick. I thought I was dying. That's a pretty bad place to be. I mean, my whole existence was about to be erased, or at least that's what I thought. But I still found things that every day that I was grateful for, big and small.
If you're just tuning in, this is Chi Talks with Javi and Tony. Our guest today is Mark Richard. We're talking about strategies for healing. And one of the things that came to mind for me this week was, I was going through this thing, and I was overwhelmed, and I was getting frustrated and angry, and I had to remind myself, oh my gosh, I'm still a healing, developing person. Like, slow down, take it easy. And I think there's this idea that, like, you become healthy and you're healthy. And I had to remind myself, like, emotionally, psychologically, I am still a healing person, and I can't expect perfection all the time from myself or from other people. And that's the grace that I want to sort of embody, call upon, and give myself and give to others. So I wanted to ask you, do we stop healing?
No, I think you're right. It's a continuing process. It's still unfolding for me.
How do we know when we're healthy?
I don't know.
I mean, going across the ages, and as you get older and your body is developing and turning continuously on you, you're always having to redefine that aspect of how do you heal? How do you get, I don't think there's an end result, which is kind of anticlimactic. I wish there was like, okay, we're healthy now. We don't have to do anything anymore, You're
lowering the bar, if you will.
And healing also, it's more than just physical, right? I mean, it's emotional healing. There's a lot to it. And when I first, got sick, I focused on the more physical, scientific side of it, nutrition. This is what I needed to do. And then I realized meditation was good. And it's been unfolding. It's been this unfolding of healing and healing modalities. And all of these things are important. Somebody asked me, okay, nutrition, what is the most important thing? It's all of it. Human connection, I have found, is super valuable. Mm-hmm. Really being present with the people that you're with, talking to them and connecting with them on a human. Everybody's got stuff going on,
Same. Oh, I was just go ahead, Tony. But I wanted to hear more about human connection. Like, what is that? How do you know when you're in that space and you're feeling it?
It's taken a long time for me. I mean, I was always a kind-hearted person. I mean, I was that way. That's why one of the reasons why I was so successful in real estate. I really cared about my clients, but I also figured out the advertising, and the combination was amazing. But, the I don't know what conferences, seminars, whatever, retreats, whatever you want to call them. They do these human connection things. It was really different for me. I mean, being a man,
touchy-feely.
Yeah, being a man and staring another man in the face. It's easier for men to stare a woman in the face and, doing these eye contact things and the expressions. I mean, you get tears in your eyes. But also being able to go up and hug a man. And in a way that you really, here's this male-to-male contact, which is really, it's like a brotherhood, and that kind of connection. But also being able to connect with, other people, women, men and women, being able to connect and have deep conversations, not like, hi, how are you? I'm good. What do you do? Oh, I'm a real estate agent, or I'm this or that. And having these surface level conversations doesn't go anywhere. People connect on the things that are tough in their life, So what brings you here? I survived cancer. Oh, wow. Tell me about that. And then, I've had this, and I went through that and went through that. You have these connections. It's like you cut through stuff. It's like at the end of 3 days with somebody or people, you feel like you've known them for years. And that kind of connection and having these friends, to me, is really, really important. There's a lot of healing that goes on there. Again, back to the epigenetics and the way that you feel. There's all those, they call them the chemicals in your mind, the mind pharmacy chemicals, the oxytocins and the endorphins and all the other stuff that gets released. You really go through some amazing stuff. The feelings and that elation that comes over your body is super healing. You're healing in those kinds of environments.
So just as you, I mean, hearing your story, you were under a lot of stress, and also you were not eating good at all. So let's just say, if you had, do you think that if you have had the capacity to eat organic and salads while you're undergoing this level of stress, do you think you would have still developed this kind of a severe illness?
I think it's more than that, but maybe not. I think that you're less likely to develop it, but I think you also need to be able to alleviate the stress. And breathing exercises are phenomenal.
So you need also a physical practice, whether it be in meditation or breathing
Absolutely,
or yoga.
I think it's very,
so that
very
you
important.
can get into the physical being of yourself.
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah.
I love the way he said earlier, love, care, and nourishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you gave yourself, which sounded good to you.
Yeah.
Because it seems like that was lacking.
Yeah. It would compared to the alternative.
Yeah.
And you basically rewrote the story that you were telling yourself in your mind through your meditation. So you basically kind of underwent a rewrite of some sort in order for your synapses to start to fire in a different way than the usual way that you were used to.
Yeah.
You took you still were driven towards success, but it was the other direction this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It is that, yeah. My central nervous system was operating on a very, very, very high level when I was, top performing. Real estate's very competitive. San Francisco market's very competitive market. And my central nervous system, I used to wake up in the middle of the night, grab my phone and email myself. And I do that 12 or 15 times a night. No kidding.
Whoa.
12 or 15 separate emails, because I knew when I got into the office in the morning, I would be able to go through my emails and I would see my messages that I sent myself.
You were locked in.
He was not going to miss a beat.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that because in our field, in martial arts, competition can become excess yang, is what we would say. Too much of it. Comparison can lead to competition. Competition can lead to combativeness. Combativeness can lead to aggression, and then escalation of violence
And injuries.
and injury.
Yeah.
So talk about the idea of competition. So for me, I had to go through my own journey of not being overly competitive or comparative.
Oh.
Yeah. In my old self, I was definitely competitive. I like to win, but I like to win against myself. And I would do this, I never really thought I was that competitive, but looking back at it, yeah, I was super competitive and everything. I like to win, And I think some of that is good. I mean, it's healthy because, some of it is for sure. You get sick with cancer and you're in a competition. I want to survive. I want to win. I want to beat this. I'm going to make it through it. But I think that, like you said, it can get to be too much. At the expense of your health, it's definitely too much, or at the expense of others or your relationships. It becomes like a competitive. I got to win this argument. It needs to be back. Cut back a little bit and take a look at it and go, okay, where is it? What's happening right now? And that's why I appreciate all the stuff that I've done in the last 3 years. I really have been able to communicate with my children better. My relationships with my children are much, much better now. My wife, everything's much better than it used to be,
Well, that's really interesting because in the West we have this we have this tendency to always want to win. We actually play the game of who's right rather than the game of connection or contributing to ourselves or to the life of others. And so this idea of winning, and it's easy to go into that victim mentality, like you said, blame, shame. It's not my fault. It's like my upbringing. It's my past. It's like this person and that person, and now I'm doomed. So, now, as we talked about the unfolding of healing, how do you help to mitigate these, what I would call, sort of like dark spaces where you're blaming and shaming either yourself or someone else?
I think that's a natural evolution of it. I think everybody goes through that. It's like, why me? Blaming something else, blaming this or blaming that. I think it takes time to go through that. For me, I got to this point, and I don't know if it was because of when I was doing meditation and everything else. And I really got grounded, during these exercises. I would really become very calm, and I didn't make things bigger or smaller than they were. I really kind of looked at them, and I got a clarity that really was like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is how to do this. And it wasn't a blaming or, looking into the past. It was looking into the future. I remember thinking to myself, wow, I blew it. I was 56 when I got sick. And I thought, I spent the last 3 decades of my life doing the wrong thing. And like a little child, I remember thinking, where's the rewind button? How do I go back into my 20s and 30s and live my life the right way? And there is no rewind button. There's only from now into the future. And I really started thinking, okay, this is what I need to do. This is the path I'm on. I'm going to heal myself, and I'm going to help others heal. It was very important to me to help others get from that place of, I was terrified. I mean, I was sick. I didn't think I was going to make it, and then I did, and then I knew I could, and then I got to the other side. I climbed Everest and came back the other side, and now I know it. And also I have a newfound love, for life. I mean, I feel like I'm reborn. I'm 63 years old right now, and I still think I have this feeling and almost this giddiness of an 8-year-old kid sometimes. And that's phenomenal to have at 63 years old.
Amen. Hey, gentlemen, before we lose time, let's take a caller. Someone called in. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning. Outstanding program. What is your name? Mark?
Mark Richard.
Mark Richard.
Mark Richard. Okay. Another thing is our society doesn't support any of this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, people are being wiped off the face of the United States, like people who have been here forever. And suddenly they're just not popular. Instead of working on their documentation and helping them make a living, they're just being violently removed. And it's just gross inequality that is happening, or that has been happening in this country. So don't blame yourself completely. It's a society that does not support people.
Yeah, no, you're right, absolutely. And I've seen that, I think it's getting better.
Thank you, caller.
I think it's getting better now. There's more. I think there's one thing that's moving right in the world is I think people are starting to see the value of going back to the older ways, going back to human connection, going back to natural diets, going back to less stressful environments. I think it's a slow process, but it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But we still do run into that. Yeah.
Guys, we got 3 minutes. Final thoughts, Tony and Mark?
I think how much, my last question is, how much do you think what the level of intensity you pursued your career, how much of that was driven by the level of poverty that you grew up in?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a pretty, very, very, it was a lot of poverty. Yeah. And that was it, success driven. And I got on that train and just started running.
You said to yourself, I'm never going to be poor ever in my life again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I concentrated solely on making money and figuring out how to be successful without the balance. And that was the mistake. It's successful at what cost? I met a young man in his 20s and he said, I want to make $100 million. And I said, hey, let me talk to you for a second. I said, there's 3 things that come to my mind. It's success at what cost? What do you give up in your life to make that kind of money? And do you really need that kind of money? I think I really got through to him. He was 26 years old. And I said, you don't need that much money to be happy. But one thing I was going to say, if it's all right, is this is all new to me, getting out and talking, because I do one-on-ones. But if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I just started a YouTube channel, brand new to me, all this stuff. All right. It's called The Mark of Life. And somebody else has that same name, but it's The Mark of Life 7777. Okay, so
on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
And I just got one video there, but I'm going to post more. So anybody that wants to follow me on my journey of help healing people, that's where I'll be.
Beautiful.
And we'll be sharing this on Qigong and Tai Chi with Javi and Nona on our YouTube channel as well. If you want to contact us, talkingchi@gmail.com. Tony is Tony Khalife Music.com. Tony, any shows coming up for you? Final words from you?
We're playing for the fire department in Piercy on the weekend with
this Saturday?
April Moore and the Ranchers. Yeah, this Saturday.
Piercy Fire Department fundraiser.
It's at the community center. Yeah, it's a fundraiser. Love playing for the fire department. They are the heroes of our modern day times. So.
Firefighters, first responders. Yeah, we really value and grateful to them. Well, guys, thank you so much. I really had a lot to ask you, and this isn't the first time or the last time that we'll do this, and. Also, Mark, hope to have you at Interbloom, maybe giving some consultations or something like that if there's a need.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to, or even coming back on and for some more time here.
Sequel.
So
yeah,
and absolutely. You have so much information too. The science based aspect of it, you can really regurgitate it. You're like what would you call it? Special forces.
Navy SEAL of
that's my
cancer.
Of science.
Scientific.
Okay. Our next question for the next show, I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
So, what as a evidence and science based practitioner and thinker, what do we make of the energetics, energy, ether, and what some may say pseudoscience?
Oh, that's a whole another hour.
Good.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot about it, and I would love to talk about that. It's amazing.
Right. All right, folks. Well, what a great show. Thanks again, guys, for
Thank you,
coming
Javi. Thank you, Mark.
Person.
Thanks, Javi. Thanks, Tony.
Until next time, folks, embrace the woo, and may your chi flow smoothly.